Across the world, people gazed at the same sun and moon, the same storms and seas, and asked the same questions. Where did we come from? Why does the world change? What powers shape life and death? Though separated by oceans and centuries, cultures answered with stories that echo one another. Tales of floods, fires, tricksters, and cosmic trees. Tonight, we will place these stories side by side, not to decide which is true, but to see how each culture shaped the same mystery in its own voice. By listening across the world's myths, we begin to hear a deeper harmony, the shared imagination of humanity, weaving order and meaning from the unknown. So get comfortable, let your thoughts drift, and let us journey together through the echoes of ancient tales. Across the world, from the fertile valleys of Mesopotamia to the mountains of Greece, from the sacred rivers of India to the temples of the Aztecs, people told of a flood that swept across the earth. These stories, separated by oceans and centuries, share striking echoes. Waters rising, humanity nearly destroyed, and a chosen few surviving to begin again. Yet, within those echoes, each culture added its own voice, shaping the flood into something that revealed their deepest beliefs about the gods, humanity, and renewal. If you enjoyed drifting off with stories like these, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share in the comments what myths or histories you'd love to hear next. Your ideas may guide the next journey we take together. The oldest surviving account comes to us from ancient Mesopotamia. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, here, the flood is not merely a natural disaster, but a deliberate act of the gods. The divine council, wary of human clamor, decided that silence was needed, and only the waters of destruction could bring it. Yet mercy still found a way. The god Ea whispered to Utnapishtim, instructing him to build an immense boat. Not the long wooden ark we might imagine, but a cube, sealed tight, meant to ride the storm. Utnapishtim obeyed, gathering his family, craftsmen, and animals of every kind. For 6 days the storm raged, until the world was drowned. When at last the rains ended, his boat came to rest on a mountain. By sending forth birds, he learned when land was safe again. In gratitude he offered sacrifice, and the gods, soothed by its fragrance, vowed never again to destroy mankind so completely. In this Mesopotamian vision, survival is won not by righteousness, but by listening carefully to divine whispers and acting with obedience and skill. Centuries later, in the Hebrew Bible, the flood takes on a moral dimension. Here, the waters come not because humanity was noisy, but because it was corrupt and violent. God chooses Noah not for his cleverness, but for his righteousness. The ark he builds is carefully measured, stretching long and wide, a vessel of covenant rather than of chance. Into this wooden ship march the animals, male and female, symbols of a world worth saving. The rain falls for 40 days and 40 nights, until every hilltop vanishes. Yet when the waters subside, and Noah releases the dove that returns with an olive branch, the story pivots from destruction to promise. God places a rainbow in the sky, not just as a sign of beauty, but as a binding promise that such devastation will never come again. Where Mesopotamia emphasizes the arbitrary will of the gods, the Hebrew story emphasizes morality, covenant, and hope. Among the Greeks, the flood appears again, though in a form distinctly their own. When Zeus judged humanity wicked, he resolved to sweep it away. But Prometheus, the titan who once gave fire to mankind, warned his son. With his wife Pyrrha Deucalion, built a chest, a modest vessel compared to the Mesopotamian cube or Noah's grand ark. For 9 days and nights, they floated across the waves until their chests rested on Mount Parnassus. In this Greek telling, the gods did not simply restore humanity afterward. Instead, the survivors sought guidance from the oracle of Themis, who spoke in riddles. "Throw behind you the bones of your great mother," she said. Puzzled, they realized the great mother was Earth herself, and her bones were stones. As they cast stones behind them, those of Deucalion became men, and those of Pyrrha became women. Humanity was reborn not through blood or lineage, but through a symbolic act of trust and clever interpretation. The Greek flood is less about morality and more about resilience, wit, and humanity's enduring connection to the earth. Far to the east, in India, the Hindu tradition speaks of Manu, the primordial man. His story begins not with the wrath of gods, but with an act of compassion. One day, Manu rescued a small fish from a river. The fish pleaded for protection, warning that a great flood would come to wash away the world. He cared for it faithfully, moving it from vessel to vessel as it grew larger, until it revealed itself as Matsya, an avatar of the god Vishnu. Forewarned Manu built a great boat and took aboard seeds of all living things. When the floodwaters rose, Matsya guided the boat safely by his horn until the waters receded. Out of gratitude, Manu began anew, fathering generations of humanity. This version of the flood shifts the focus. Yet again, destruction comes. Yes, but it is kindness and faithfulness that save the world. Unlike the Hebrew or Mesopotamian stories, where gods choose their favored one, here the hero earns salvation by protecting even the smallest of lives. Across the ocean, in Mesoamerica, the Aztec people also told of floods, but not as one singular event. Their worldview was cyclical. The cosmos created and destroyed in great ages known as suns. In one such age, when giants walked the earth, the gods brought about its end through a deluge. Rain poured endlessly, drowning the land, and only 2 giants survived by sheltering within the hollow of a tree. But survival was not simple salvation. The gods transformed these survivors into dogs, signaling that the world would continue, but in a new form, with humanity reborn differently than before. In the Aztec story, the flood is part of an eternal cycle. Worlds are destroyed, reshaped, and reborn. Unlike the linear covenant of Noah or the moral cleansing of Zeus, the Aztec flood is neither judgment nor mercy. It is the turning of a cosmic wheel. Taken together, these flood stories reveal both universality and difference. Nearly every culture saw water as both destroyer and purifier, a force that sweeps away corruption, arrogance, or simply the noise of humanity. Each culture, though, projected its own vision onto the flood. In Mesopotamia, survival was obedience to divine command. In the Hebrew Bible, it was righteousness rewarded and covenant renewed. In Greece, it was wit, riddles, and the enduring bond with earth. In India, it was compassion that preserved creation. In the Aztec world, it was the inevitability of cycles, where destruction is always paired with transformation. So, when we close our eyes and drift into these stories, we see not just one flood, but many. The waters rise again and again, yet always a remnant endures. Whether in cube-shaped arcs or wooden chests, guided by gods or oracles, humanity finds its way back. The flood is never the end. It is the pause before renewal, the silence before the world is sung alive once more. Fire. To us, it is so ordinary that we rarely pause to notice it. The flicker of a candle, the warmth of a hearth, the spark that turns night into day. But in the ancient imagination, fire was never ordinary. It was a miracle, a gift so powerful it could only have been stolen from the gods, bargained from spirits, or born through sacrifice. Across cultures, the origin of fire became a story about survival, ingenuity, and the delicate boundary between humanity and the divine. The Greeks told one of the most enduring versions. At the dawn of time, humans shivered in the cold and stumbled in the dark. The gods of Olympus, proud and distant, had chosen to keep fire for themselves. But Prometheus, a titan whose heart leaned toward mankind, could not bear to see mortals suffer. In secret, he climbed to the heavens, hid a spark in a hollow stalk of fennel, and carried it back to Earth. With that small flame, humans cooked food, forged tools, and pushed back the night. Yet such defiance came at a terrible cost. Zeus, king of the gods, chained Prometheus to a lonely rock, where an eagle tore at his liver day after day. The myth is more than a tale of theft. It is a meditation on sacrifice. Fire is not free. It comes with risk, rebellion, and pain. It makes us powerful, but it also marks us with responsibility, as if each flame still remembers the suffering of its giver. Far across the seas, in Polynesia, Dembore, people told of another firebringer, Mdui, the trickster, demigod. Unlike Prometheus, Mdui was not punished for kindness, but driven by cunning and mischief. In his world, fire was guarded by Mahuika, the goddess of flame, who kept it hidden in her fingernails. When Mdui sought fire for humankind, he flattered and deceived her, asking for a flame again and again until she gave away nearly all of her burning nails. At last, realizing his trickery, Mahuika flung her final sparks into the forests, embedding fire in wood. From 10 on humans could coax flame by striking sticks together, summoning the hidden gift that Mdui had won through guile. Where Prometheus's tale speaks of suffering for humanity's sake, Mdui's story celebrates wit, daring, and the playful courage to trick even the gods. Both suggest that fire is not ours by right. It is something taken, stolen, wrestled from beings greater than ourselves. In India, however, fire was not stolen at all. It was honored. The Hindus spoke of Agni, the god of fire, one of the most important deities in the ancient Vedas. Agni was more than a flame. He was the messenger between humans and the divine. Every ritual fire, every sacrificial offering, rose through him to reach the gods. Agni was both giver and bridge, both destroyer and purifier. In the warmth of his flames, food was cooked and prayers were carried upward. Unlike Prometheus's stolen spark or Mdui's trickery, Agni's fire was sacred and reciprocal. Humans did not steal it but tended it carefully, feeding it with offerings so that it would feed them in return. Intisbitium, fire is not rebellion but communion, the eternal link between mortal and immortal, a reminder that every flicker of flame is a conversation with the cosmos. In the traditions of the Cherokee people of North America, fire too was sacred, but it was hidden, guarded with great care. Long ago, when the world was young, fire was kept safe by a grandmother's spirit deep inside a hollow tree. For humanity, obtaining it required courage and cleverness. Animals tried to fetch it. Birds flew toward the burning tree but lost their feathers. Insects tried and were scorched until at last the humble water spider succeeded. She wove a small bowl of clay, carried a spark within it, and brought the fire safely back to the people. From then on, fire was cherished as a living presence, born from sacrifice and kept with reverence. In this tale, unlike the bold theft of Prometheus or the trickery of Mdu, fire is not taken but entrusted. A gift carried carefully, protected by the smallest and most unassuming of creatures. And in the great myths of the Aztecs, fire was woven into the very creation of the sun. In the time before our world, darkness covered the earth. The gods gathered at Teotihuacan to decide who would light the sky. Two deities stepped forward, proud Tecutecatl and humble Nanahuatzin. One after another, they leapt into the sacrificial flames. From their burning bodies, the sun and the moon were born, but at first they stood still in the sky. To set them moving, the other gods sacrificed themselves as well, and in that ultimate act, fire blazed in the heavens. The sun began to travel its daily path, sustained by blood and devotion. For the Aztecs, fire was not a theft, nor a hidden spark. It was divine sacrifice itself, the beating heart of the cosmos, demanding offerings in return to keep the world alive. When we place these stories side by side, their contrasts gleam like embers in the dark. In Greece, fire is rebellion and pain, torn from the jealous grasp of Zeus. In Polynesia, it is wheat and trickery, stolen with a smile from the goddess of flame. In India, it is sacred and honored, a bridge between human and divine. In Cherokee tradition, it is hidden and carefully carried, entrusted to the people by the smallest of guardians. And in the Aztec world, it is born from sacrifice, the very spark of the sun itself, a gift so costly that it must be fed with blood. Yet through all these variations runs a common truth. Fire is never ordinary. It is always precious, dangerous, alive with meaning. It warms us, nourishes us, and lights our way. But it also reminds us of its origins. Of titans chained, goddesses tricked messengers, honored spiders carrying sparks, and deities who leaped into flame so that the sun might rise. Every time we strike a match or see the glow of a hearth, we are standing inside those old stories, inheritors of a gift that was never meant to be easy, but always meant to be transformative. The sun and its path. Since the first dawn, humanity has lifted its eyes to the rising sun. Its steady return each morning promised life, warmth, and renewal. Its absence brought fear of darkness and death. Across cultures, the sun was never just a ball of fire in the sky. It was a living presence, a god or a goddess whose journey explained the very rhythm of time. Yet every culture imagined this journey differently, shaping the sun's path into a story of struggle, devotion, and divine purpose. In ancient Egypt, the sun was personified as Ra, the mighty god whose golden disk illuminated the two lands. Each morning, Ra set out across the sky in his solar boat, watched by all who lived and farmed along the Nile. Yet his journey was not only through day, but also through night. At dusk, Ra descended into the underworld, navigating rivers of darkness. There he faced Apep, the great serpent of chaos, who sought to devour him and plunge the world into eternal night. With the help of other gods, Ra fought Apep each evening, and by dawn he triumphed once more, rising again in the east. For the Egyptians, the sun's path was a cycle of eternal renewal, a daily battle against chaos. The sunrise was not guaranteed. It was earned anew each morning, a reassurance that order and life had triumphed once again. In the far north, under colder skies, the Norse told a harsher story. The sun was not a god's boat, but a goddess herself, named Sol. She rode a shining chariot across the heavens, her horse's manes blazing with light. Yet hers was no peaceful journey. Behind her ran the great wolf skull, jaws open, always chasing, always threatening to swallow her. Day after day she fled, the world bathed in her radiance, as long as she remained ahead. But the Norse believed her doom was certain. At Ragnarok, the end of all things, Skull would finally catch her, devouring the sun and plunging the world into darkness. Where the Egyptians saw an endless cycle, the Norse saw a path that must end, light destined to fall to shadow. Their story reflects a colder truth, that even the brightest flame is not forever, and that every dawn is made precious by the knowledge of its eventual loss. In Japan, the sun was revered as Amaterasu, the radiant goddess who brought life to the islands. Yet her story was not one of endless pursuit or nightly battles, but of withdrawal and return. Once, offended by the violence of her brother Amaterasu retreated into a cave, sealing herself away and plunging the world into darkness. Crops failed, rivers stilled, and despair spread across the land. The other gods gathered in alarm, devising a plan to draw her back. They placed a mirror at the cave's mouth and performed joyous dances, laughter and music echoing through the gloom. Curiosity stirred Amaterasu's heart, and she peeked out, only to see her own radiant reflection shining back. Drawn forth by wonder, she stepped out of the cave, and light returned to the world. For the Japanese, the sun's path was not just a journey through sky and shadow. It was a reminder of balance, of the fragility of harmony, and of the power of joy and community to restore the light. Inte, Andes high among mountains, where the air is thin and clear. The Inca worshipped Inti more than any other power. He was the giver of life, warmth, and growth. Golden temples rose in his honor, their walls adorned with plates of shining metal, meant to catch and reflect his rays. The Inca saw themselves as his chosen people, the children of the sun, entrusted to spread his order across the land. Each day Inti journeyed across the sky, his warmth ensuring the harvests that sustained empires. Yet his gift demanded reverence. Festivals were held in his honor, with offerings of chitsa, coca leaves, and even human lives, given in gratitude and in hope that his path would remain steady. Unlike the Norse vision of inevitable doom, or the Egyptian struggle against chaos, the Inca saw the sun's path as benevolent, but conditional. It was a divine favor, one that had to be honored with devotion, or risk being withdrawn. In the Aztec world, the sun was Tonatiuh, fierce and unrelenting, a god who demanded constant sacrifice. The Aztecs believed that the sun would not move across the sky without nourishment, and that nourishment was blood, the vital essence of life. According to their myths, when the world was created, the gods themselves sacrificed their bodies to set the sun in motion. From 10 on it fell to humanity to repay that debt. Temples rose in Tonatiuh's honor, where warriors, captives, and volunteers offered their lives so the sun might continue its daily journey. In Tispician, the sun's path was fragile. dependent not on the will of the gods alone, but on the devotion of mortals. Every sunrise was a reminder of cosmic debt, of the great balance that demanded blood in exchange for light. Placed side by side, these myths reveal a dazzling spectrum of how humanity has understood the sun. To the Egyptians, it was a warrior's cycle of order over chaos. To the Norse, it was a goddess forever hunted, her path a race against doom. To the Japanese, it was a fragile light that could vanish in grief, restored only through joy and reflection. To the Inca, it was a fatherly presence, life-giving, but requiring reverence. And to the Aztecs, it was a ravenous god, moving only through sacrifice and blood. And yet, through all these differences, the core truth remains the same. The sun is life. Its path through the sky is the heartbeat of the world. Whether we imagine it sailing in a golden boat, fleeing from wolves, stepping out of a cave, blessing crops, or fed by sacrifice, we are all telling the same truth, that without the sun, there is no life. Every dawn is a miracle, every sunset a mystery. The stories remind us that light is never to be taken for granted, for behind it always lurks shadow, chaos, or silence. And so we tell these tales to reassure ourselves that tomorrow, when we open our eyes, the sun will rise again, the moon's secret face. If the sun is the great heartbeat of the day, then the moon is the quiet breath of the night. Its silver glow has guided travelers, marked the tides, and inspired songs and prayers for thousands of years. Yet unlike the sun's steady blaze, the moon changes. It waxes, wanes, disappears, and returns, wearing a new face each time. This mystery gave rise to countless myths, each one searching to explain the moon's secret rhythms. In China, the moon became the home of change, the radiant moon goddess. Her story is both tender and tragic. Long ago, her husband, the archer, Hui, saved the earth by shooting down 9 burning suns that threatened to scorch the world. For his bravery, he was gifted an elixir of immortality. But fate twisted the gift. To keep the potion from falling into the wrong hands, Chang drank it herself. At once, she floated upward, leaving her husband behind, rising until she came to rest on the cold, luminous moon. There, she lives still, accompanied by the jade rabbit, who tirelessly pounds herbs in a mortar. During the Mid-Autumn festival, families gather to admire the moon, imagining change, gazing back at them. Her story is a reminder that the moon is not just light in the sky, but longing, separation, and beauty tinged with sorrow. The Norse imagined the moon differently. To them, it was Mahoney, the brother of Sol, the sun goddess. Like his sister, Mahoney drove a shining chariot through the heavens, marking the nights. But he was not free. Behind him ran Hati, a ravenous wolf, forever chasing, snapping at his heels. Just as Sol was hunted by Skull, Mana's fate was sealed. At Ragnarok, the great twilight of the gods, Hoti would catch him at last, devouring the moon and casting the night into unending shadow. Where the Chinese saw the moon as a goddess in exile, the Norse saw it as a doomed god, running a race he could never win. In their cold northern nights, the waxing and waning of the moon was not beauty alone, but the constant reminder of pursuit, of danger close behind. To the Maya of Central America, the moon belonged to Ixchel, a powerful goddess of cycles. She was not only the moon, but also a weaver, spinning the threads of existence itself. Her loom measured the passing of time. Her waxing and waning were the rising and falling of life's patterns. Ixchel was also a goddess of fertility and medicine, watching over childbirth and the flow of rivers alike. In her, the moon was not a hunted god or a lonely exile, but the great weaver of the world's cycles. Each phase was a stitch, each eclipse a knot, binding time, growth, and destiny together. When the moon swelled to fullness, it was Ixchel's blessing. When it faded, her withdrawal. The moon's secret face here was not sorrow or fear, but balance, the eternal weaving of beginnings and endings. In Egypt, the moon belonged to Thoth, the god of wisdom, while Ra governed the sun and life. Thoth measured the night and the order of time itself. The Egyptians noticed that the moon's cycles tracked the passage of months, and so Thoth became the keeper of calendars. the recorder of seasons, and the measurer of destinies. His crescent crown shone with lunar light, symbolizing knowledge and balance. For the Egyptians, the moon's secret face was mathematics and order. Where others saw longing or pursuit, they saw precision. The steady counting of days, the marking of rituals, the harmony of heaven and earth, kept by the light of the moon. The Aztecs, however, told of the moon in darker terms. Their goddess Coyolxauhqui was not a serene weaver or wise recorder, but a figure of violent dismemberment. She was the sister of Huitzilopochtli, the war god, and when she sought to destroy him at his birth, he struck her down, cutting her body into pieces and hurling them into the sky. Her scattered form became the moon, forever broken, a reminder of struggle, sacrifice, and cosmic battle. To the Aztecs, moon's markings were her wounds, her dismembered body glowing above, a silent witness to the power of the gods. The moon's changing face was not gentle or precise, but a scar across the heavens, a reminder of blood and conflict woven into the cosmos. When we bring these stories together, the moon becomes a mirror reflecting many truths. To the Chinese, it is the sorrow of separation, changed longing for her lost husband. To the Norse, it is pursuit and inevitability, Mahani forever chased by the wolf. To the Maya, it is weaving and renewal, Ixchel guiding the cycles of time. To the Egyptians, it is wisdom and measurement, Thoth keeping balance through the lunar months. And to the Aztecs, it is struggle and sacrifice, Coyolxauhqui's broken body shining on in silver light. And yet, through all of these, a common thread remains. The moon is never empty. It is never just rock and dust. It is story, longing, warning, order, and mystery. Its changing face reminds us that time moves in cycles, that light waxes and wanes, that sorrow and joy, loss and renewal, wisdom and chaos all follow one another as the moon follows its path across the sky. Its secret face is not a single meaning, but all of them at once. So when we look up at night, watching the silver glow or the shadowed crescent, we are not only seeing a celestial body, we are seeing change and her jade rabbit, Mahoni fleeing the wolf, Ixchel weaving, Thoth measuring, and Coyolxauhqui shining in her broken beauty. The moon holds them all, carrying their stories across cultures and centuries, and whispering the reminder that even in the darkness, light always returns. The creation of the world. Before the first sunrise, before the seas and the mountains, before even the stars, there was the question of how the world began. Every culture has asked it, and every culture has answered in its own way. Some imagined creation as an act of violence, others as a birth, others as a dream. When we listen to their stories, we hear both echoes of one another and striking differences, woven together into the tapestry of human imagination. In Babylon, one of the oldest centers of civilization, creation was told through the Enuma Elish. In this great myth, the world began not in silence, but in conflict. The primeval waters were personified as Apsu, the fresh waters, and Tiamat, the salt seas. From their mingling came younger gods, whose noise and ambition disturbed their parents. When Apsu sought to destroy them, he was slain, and Tiamat rose in fury, birthing monsters and preparing for war. The young god Marduk stepped forward, armed with a net, bow, and winds, in a titanic battle. Slew Tiamat, splitting her body in two. From one half he fashioned the dome of the sky, from the other, the foundations of the earth. Rivers flowed from her eyes, mountains from her spine. The world itself was born from her defeat. To the Babylonians, creation was not gentle but forged through strife, order carved from chaos, and the cosmos itself shaped from the body of a slain goddess. In the far north, the Norse also saw creation in blood and bone. In their vision, before all things was Ginnungagap, a vast, yawning void between realms of fire and ice. From the melting frost emerged Ymir, a giant whose body held the raw stuff of life. From his sweat came other giants, and from his cow, Audhumla, flowed milk to nourish the first beings. But the gods, led by Odin and his brothers, turned against him. Te slay Weeman from his immense corpse, they built the world. His flesh became the earth, his blood the seas, his bones the mountains, his skull the sky, and his brain the clouds. From his eyebrows they formed Midgard, the realm of men. Like the Babylonians, the Norse saw creation as an act of violence, a sacrifice that turned body into landscape. The very ground beneath their feet was alive with ancient death, reminding them that life and destruction are inseparable. Far across the seas, in the traditions of the Embori of Aotearoa, creation came not from battle, but from separation. In the beginning, Rangi, the Sky Father, and Papa, the Earth Mother, lay locked together in a loving embrace. Between them, their children lived cramped in darkness, longing for space and light. The children debated what to do. Some wished to kill their parents, but the god of forests, Teen, proposed a gentler act: to push them apart. With his strong legs, Teen braced himself against Papa and pressed Rangi upward. Slowly, painfully, the sky and earth were separated, light pouring into the world for the first time. The parents wept for one another, Papa's tears becoming rivers, Rangi's sighs falling as rain. In T-Specian creation is not conquest, but heartbreak. The world is born from love, pulled apart from loss that gave birth to life and space for growth. The Greeks, too, imagined a beginning in terms of relationships, though theirs began with chaos. Not chaos in the modern sense of disorder, but a vast emptiness, a gaping nothingness. From chaos emerged Gaia, the earth, solid and fertile. Soon came Uranus, the sky, who lay across her, and together they bore children. The Titans, the Cyclopes, the Furies. From Gaia also sprang mountains and seas, while Nyx, night, and Eros, love, came forth from chaos itself. Unlike the bloody violence of Babylon or Norse myth, the Greek creation is more of a genealogy, a family tree stretching back into nothingness. The world is not sculpted but born, generation by generation, through the union of earth and sky, love and darkness. Creation here is both intimate and eternal, with gods and landscapes sharing the same ancestry. In India, creation was seen through the cosmic dreams of Vishnu. The Hindu tradition speaks of a great ocean, stretching endlessly. Upon it rests Vishnu, lying on the serpent Ananta, the Endless One. From his navel grows a lotus, and upon it sits Brahma, who creates the world. In this telling, the universe is not shaped from death or divided lovers, but dreamed into being. Vishnu breathes out, and countless worlds expand. A breathes in, and they dissolve again, returning to the cosmic ocean. Creation is eternal, cyclical, without a single beginning or end. Unlike the Norse or Babylonian visions of violence, or the Greek stories of family, the Hindu view sees the cosmos as rhythm, as breath and dream, infinite in possibility. When we look across these myths together, we see that creation is both universal and deeply cultural. The Babylonians and Norse imagined the cosmos born from the slain bodies of primordial beings, a world forged in blood and bone. The Embori saw creation as a separation of parents, a necessary sorrow that opened the way for life. The Greeks envisioned a family tree of gods and elements, unfolding from emptiness into fertility. And the Hindus saw a dream, an eternal cycle of creation and dissolution, born from the divine breath of Vishnu. Despite their differences, each story speaks to a shared human truth. The world feels too immense, too mysterious, to have simply appeared. Whether through battle, birth, heartbreak, genealogy, or dream, people everywhere reached for story to make sense of existence. The ground beneath us, the sky above, the seas and rivers, all became sacred, parts of someone or something that gave itself so that we might live. So when we look at the earth, at mountains, rivers, or the vault of the heavens, we might also see the bodies of giants, the tears of lovers, the breath of a god, or the dream of it. Creation, in all these tales, is never just the beginning. It is the ongoing reminder that the world itself is alive with meaning, and that existence is a story still being told. The afterlife. Death is the horizon that all must one day reach. No matter the culture, no matter the time, humans have looked into the silence of death and asked, what lies beyond? The answers shaped rituals, beliefs, and entire civilizations. For some, the afterlife was judgment and justice. For others, it was shadow and silence. And for still others, it was reward, punishment, or an arduous journey. In these stories, the afterlife was not the end, but a continuation, a passage into another realm. In ancient Egypt, the afterlife was at once hopeful and perilous. The Egyptians believed that when a person died, their soul began a journey into the Duat, the underworld, where it would stand before Osiris, Lord of the Dead. There, a great test awaited. The weighing of the heart against the feather of Mat, the goddess of truth and justice. If the heart was lighter than the feather, free of sin and falsehood, the soul could pass into the field of reeds, a paradise mirroring earthly life, filled with harvests and peace. But if the heart was heavy with wrongdoing, it was devoured by Ammit, the fearsome creature pot, crocodile, lion, and hippopotamus. The soul would be destroyed forever. For Egyptians, the afterlife was a moral trial, a continuation of order versus chaos. Death was not an escape, but the ultimate judgment, where truth determined eternity. The Mesopotamians imagined a far gloomier fate. In their myths, the dead descended to the realm of Ereshkigal, queen of the underworld. Unlike Egypt's hopeful paradise, this underworld was a land of dust and shadows. Souls drank from muddy waters, ate clay, and wandered endlessly, stripped of joy or purpose. Kings and commoners shared the same fate. For in Mesopotamia, death was the great equalizer. Even mighty Gilgamesh, the hero who sought immortality, was told that all must eventually go down to this dreary place. The Mesopotamian afterlife was not reward or punishment. It was inevitability, the slow fading of memory and light. Where Egypt promised eternal fields for the righteous, Mesopotamia offered only silence, a reminder of mortality's weight. The Greeks imagined the afterlife with greater complexity. They called it Hades, after both a place and the god who ruled it. Souls entered through the river Styx, ferried by Charon if they carried a coin for passage. Once inside, the afterlife spread into realms. The asphodel meadows held the ordinary souls, living in quiet neutrality. The virtuous and heroic were granted entry to the Elysian fields, a paradise of beauty and song. The wicked and monstrous were cast into Tartarus, a pit of torment and punishment, and some few, judged truly noble, were granted rebirth, cycling back into life until they achieved perfection. The Greek afterlife was both structured and symbolic, a mirror of earthly morality, a place of rest for some, torment for others, and even a chance for renewal. In the Aztec world, the afterlife was not about morality, but they believed in a vast underworld of 9 levels, ruled by the god Mictlantecutli and his skeletal queen, Mictacasi. The dead did not simply appear there. They had to journey through its levels, guided by a loyal spirit dog. Along the way, they faced trials, crossing rivers, passing mountains that clashed together, enduring winds of obsidian knives, and walking through darkness where nothing could be seen. Only after 4 years of hardship could a soul finally rest in silent depths. For the Aztecs, the afterlife was not about reward or punishment, but about the journey itself, a trial that every soul had to endure. Yet not all followed this path. Warriors who died in battle and women who died in childbirth were taken to join the sun, living eternally in radiant cycles. In Tispishon, death was not equal for all, but shaped by destiny and sacrifice. Among the Norse, the afterlife was split between glory and shadow. Warriors who died bravely in battle were chosen by the Valkyries, carried to Valhalla, Odin's hole. There they feasted, drank mead, and fought daily, preparing for Ragnarok, when they would rise again to fight beside the gods. For others, the afterlife led not to glory but to Hell's Hall, a cold and quiet realm ruled by the goddess Hel. There, Souls lingered without torment, but also without joy. Unlike the Egyptians, where morality determined fate, or the Greeks, where judgment decided placement, the Norse afterlife depended on how one died. To die in battle was to live again in song. To die in bed was to fade into stillness. The afterlife reflected the Norse values of courage, honor, and the endless cycle of struggle. Taken together, these visions paint a wide spectrum of humanity's hopes and fears. The Egyptians saw the afterlife as a moral reckoning, where truth would either free or destroy. The Mesopotamians saw it as inevitable decline, shadow for all. The Greeks offered variety, meadows, paradise, or torment, depending on one's deeds. The Aztecs imagined a long and perilous journey, a test of endurance rather than of morality, and the Norse divided the dead by valor, granting eternal feasts to warriors and quiet halls to the rest. And yet, beneath all the differences, one truth unites them. No culture believed that death was nothing. Whether it was judgment, shadow, journey, or hall, the afterlife was always something, always a realm beyond this one. Death was a passage, not unending. It carried weight, mystery, and meaning. When we look to these myths, we see more than ancient beliefs. We see reflections of how people understood life itself. For Egyptians, life was about truth and justice, so the afterlife became judgment. For Mesopotamians, life was fragile and fleeting, so death became shadow. For Greeks, life was a mix of good, evil, and ordinary, so their afterlife reflected all three. For the Aztecs, life was struggle, so death became a journey. For the Norse, life was about honor in battle, so death became another arena for courage. And so, when we ponder the afterlife today, we carry all of these echoes with us. The feather of Mat, the dusty halls of Ereshkigal, the meadows of Asphodel, the 9 levels of the feasting of Valhalla. Each is a different face of the same mystery. They remind us that death, though certain, has never been seen as emptiness. It is story, trial, or promise. It is, in every culture, a continuation. The cosmic tree. Across the world, people looked at trees and saw more than wood and leaves. They saw pillars holding up the sky, roots drinking from hidden waters, branches touching the stars. A tree could stand for the whole universe. Its trunk, the axis of existence. Its canopy, the heavens. Its roots, the underworld. This vision of a cosmic tree binding all realms together appears in myths scattered across continents, separated by oceans yet bound by imagination. In the cold north, the Norse people told of Yggdrasil, the great world tree. It was an ash, immense and eternal, stretching its branches over gods and mortals alike. At its roots lay 3 wells, one of wisdom, one of fate, and one of primal waters. Serpents gnawed at its roots, while an eagle perched in its branches, with a squirrel named Ratatoska scurrying between, carrying insults from root to crown. All 9 realms of existence were bound upon Yggdrasil, Asgard, Midgard, Hel, and the others, woven into its bark and branches. Even the gods depended on its health. When Ragnar came, the world tree would tremble, yet some whispered that from its shelter a new world would rise. For the Norse, the cosmic tree was both the stage of all existence and the thread holding it together, a reminder that even gods were rooted in something larger than themselves. In the jungles of Central America, the Maya told of the ceiba tree sacred and towering its roots, digging into the underworld of Xibalba, its trunk standing in the world of men and its branches arching into the heavens where the gods dwelled. The ceiba was the path of souls, the ladder by which shamans traveled in vision, and the bridge connecting realms. Its flowers and fruits were signs of fertility, and its towering height made it a natural axis mundi. The very center of the cosmos, the Maya saw themselves living at the base of this tree, sustained by its gifts, yet also humbled by its grandeur. Where Yggdrasil carried 9 realms, the ceiba carried 3. Underworld, earth, and sky. Both trees, though distant in geography, told the same truth. That existence is layered, and that a tree is the thread binding those layers together. Far to the north, among Siberian peoples, shamans spoke of trees as ladders to the heavens. In their rituals, they would carve notches into a pole or imagine climbing a cosmic tree whose branches touched the stars. Each branch was a step into another sky, another level of existence, until the highest crown where the great spirits dwelled. The shaman, in trance, could climb this tree and return with visions, healing, and wisdom. For them, the tree was not a distant myth, but a living tool. A structure of the soul that allowed passage between worlds. Where the Norse placed gods in its branches, and the Maya placed realms upon its trunk, the Siberians used the tree as a bridge for the human spirit itself. In India, the sacred tree was the Ashvatha, often imagined as a cosmic fig tree. Its roots grew not into the earth, but upward, into the heavens, while its branches spread downward into the world. The Ashvatha was eternal, its leaves the hymns of the Vedas, its trunk the connection between divine and mortal. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is described as a tree that has no true beginning or end, a reflection of the eternal cycles of existence. To cut it down was not to destroy life, but to transcend illusion, to move beyond the endless cycle of birth and death. In Tispicion, the cosmic tree was not only the structure of the world, but also the symbol of liberation, where the Norse saw fate, and the Maya saw a bridge of souls. The Hindus saw eternity itself, mirrored in the upside-down roots of the Ashvatha. Among many Native American traditions, there was also a tree of life. Its roots sank deep into the waters, the source of nourishment for all things. Its trunk stood firm in the world of men, while its branches reached into the sky, sheltering birds, spirits, and stars. In creation stories, such as those of the Iroquois, the Sky Woman fell from above and landed upon the back of a great turtle, carrying seeds from the tree of life with her. These seeds sprouted and became the plants of the earth, linking all living beings back to that first tree. In this way, the tree of life was both literal and symbolic, a source of food, medicine, and shelter, but also the unifying symbol of creation and kinship. Every root and branch was a reminder that all beings are connected, nourished by the same waters, reaching toward the same light. Placed side by side, these trees form a forest of meaning across the human imagination. Yggdrasil holds 9 worlds in its vast branches. The Siba anchors underworld, earth, and sky. The Siberian tree is a shaman's ladder, rung by rung, into vision. The Ashvatha is eternal, a reflection of cosmic cycles. The Native American tree of life is creation itself, its seeds giving birth to the world. Though their details differ, they all share the same truth: that life is not flat, but layered, that the world has depth, roots in darkness, branches in light, and a trunk that binds them. That existence itself is alive, a living tree in which we are only leaves or seeds. When we look at a tree, standing tall in a forest or solitary on a hill, we may see more than bark and branches. We may see Yggdrasil trembling with the fate of gods. We may see the Siba towering as a bridge between realms. We may see a shaman climbing into the heavens, or Vishnu's eternal Ashvatha, its roots tangled in infinity. We may see the tree of life, whose roots drink from the same waters we do, whose branches stretch toward the same sky. The cosmic tree is the great reminder that we, too, are connected, that our lives, like branches, spread outward, but all of us are rooted in the same earth, fed by the same light, and held by the same mysterious trunk of existence. The stars and constellations. When night falls and the sky darkens, the stars appear like scattered jewels, countless and eternal. To some, they were maps across oceans. To others, they were gods, lovers, hunters, or animals, painted across the heavens. Constellations are more than points of light. They are the stories of humanity written in the night sky, reminders that across cultures, we have always looked upward and seen meaning. To the Greeks, the stars were filled with heroes and legends. One of the most famous was Orion, the mighty hunter. His story is told in many ways. Some say he was the son of Poseidon, striding across the seas. Others say he was a great hunter who angered the gods. In the end, Orion was slain. Some say by Artemis, others by a scorpion sent by Gaia. Yet death was not the end. The gods placed him among the stars, his belt of 3 shining jewels marking his form forever. Beside him, the loyal dog Sirius follows, while the scorpion that killed him rises on the opposite side of the sky. For the Greeks, the constellations were a reminder of human greatness and divine jealousy, of glory immortalized above. Every winter, when Orion rises, his story comes alive again, and the heavens become a theater of myth. For the Polynesians, scattered across vast oceans, the stars were not just stories but lifelines. They served as maps, guiding canoes across thousands of miles of open water. Each star had a name, and each constellation a direction. Navigators memorized the star lines, watching their rise and fall to steer across the waves. The Southern Cross marked the south, while other stars indicated east or west. Even the Milky Way became a celestial road stretching across the night. These constellations were not myths carved into the heavens, but practical charts, carried in memory and song. The Polynesian sky was a map of survival, proof that the stars are not only to be admired, but to be trusted, followed, and lived by. In Egypt, too, the stars carried divine meaning. They looked at Orion and did not see a hunter, but Osiris, Lord of the Dead. His rising in the night sky marked the annual flooding of the Nile, bringing life to the desert and abundance to the people. The goddess Isis shone nearby Osiris, whose appearance at dawn heralded the season of renewal. To the Egyptians, constellations were not distant myths, but signs woven into the rhythm of the earth itself. The heavens mirrored their gods, their cycles of death and rebirth written in the stars. When Osiris rose, so too did the Nile. The sky was a divine calendar, proving that earth and heaven were one. In China, the stars became stories of longing and love. One of the most cherished tales is that of the weaver girl and the cowherd. She was a celestial maiden who wove the clouds, and he was a humble mortal. They fell in love, but the gods forbade their union, separating them across the Milky Way. Once a year, on the 7th night of the 7th month, magpies formed a bridge across the stars, allowing the lovers to reunite. This story, tied to the stars Vega and Altair, still inspires festivals today, with lovers gazing at the sky and imagining the reunion. For the Chinese, constellations were not only markers of time but reflections of human emotion. Joy, sorrow, and devotion carried among the stars. And in the vast Australian outback, the Aboriginal peoples saw something different. Where others traced patterns from the stars themselves, they traced meaning in the dark spaces between them. One of their greatest constellations was the Emu, not outlined by shining lights, but by the dark dust lanes of the Milky Way. Its head was the Coal-Sack Nebula, its body the shadowed bands of starlight. To them, the Emu was alive in the heavens, its movement across the sky marking seasons on Earth. When the emu eggs would be ready to gather, when the land would shift from one cycle to the next. This was not myth alone, but a living calendar, where the stars spoke directly to the rhythms of the earth. Taken together, these visions of the stars show the breadth of human imagination. To the Greeks, constellations were myths of heroes and gods. To the Polynesians, they were maps across the sea. To the Egyptians, they were divine signs tied to the flooding of the Nile. To the Chinese, they were lovers divided by the Milky Way. To the Aboriginal Australians, they were not only stars, but shadows, living animals that spoke of seasons. Yet through all the differences, one truth unites them. The night sky is never silent. It has always been read, sung, and remembered. It has guided sailors, inspired poets, and reassured farmers. It has reflected our longings, our fears, our hopes, and our knowledge. The stars and constellations are not only above us, they are part of our lives, woven into culture and memory. So the next time we look up and see Orion rising, or the Milky Way stretching across the sky, we can remember that others, long before us, saw the same lights and told their own stories. A hunter, a god, a lover, a map, an emu, all shimmering together in the same eternal sky. The serpent, Few symbols appear so often in myth as the serpent, winding, coiling, shedding its skin. The snake has long been a figure of danger, renewal, and mystery. Sometimes it is a monster to be slain. Sometimes it is wisdom itself. Sometimes it encircles the world, and sometimes it carries the rain. Across cultures, the serpent slithers through myth as a reminder of nature's power and the thin line between creation and destruction. In the frozen north, the Norse spoke of Jarmangandor, the world's serpent, cast into the sea by Odin. It grew so vast that it encircled the earth, biting its own tail. It lay in the ocean's depths, the living boundary of Midgard, the world of men. But Jarmangandor was no peaceful guardian. Its destiny was tied to Ragnarok. The end of days, when the serpent released its tail, it would rise from the sea, spewing venom, flooding the land, and fighting Thor in a battle that would kill them both. For the Norse, the serpent embodied both the awe of the ocean's vastness and the terror of inevitable doom. It was the boundary of the known, and when it stirred, the world itself would shake. Far to the west, among the Aztecs, the serpent took a very different form. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, was not a monster, but a god of wisdom, wind, and creation. With plumed wings along his serpent's body, he bridged earth and sky. Quetzalcoatl was the giver of maize, the bringer of knowledge, the god who shaped humanity itself from the bones of earlier races, sprinkling them with his own blood to bring them to life. He was a culture hero, a teacher, a god of balance who stood against the darkness of sacrifice and destruction. Where Jarmangandor promised the world's end, Quetzalcoatl carried its renewal. His feathers lifted the serpent from earth to heaven, turning a creature of the soil into a symbol of transcendence. In Hindu tradition, serpents, or nagas, also carried cosmic weight. Among them was Shishe, the endless serpent. Vast and coiled, Shisha floated upon the cosmic ocean, his 1,000 hoods spread like a canopy. Upon his coils rested Vishnu, the preserver, who dreamed the universe into being. Shisha was not destruction, nor cunning, but stability. The one who held the world steady when gods and demons churned the ocean of milk. He was the bed of the divine, the patient witness to endless cycles of creation and dissolution. Where Norse myth made the serpent a harbinger of doom, Hindu myth made it the very foundation of order, the steady base upon which gods and worlds could rest. The Greeks, too, had their serpent, but theirs was more beast than god. At Delphi, the sacred site of prophecy, there once coiled a great serpent named Python. It was said to guard the oracle until the young god Apollo came, radiant with his bow. He slew Python with arrows, claiming the site as his own and establishing the great oracle of Delphi. The serpent here symbolized the old, primordial Charles, untamed and dangerous, while Apollo represented the new, the orderly, the divine light of prophecy. Python's death marked the triumph of gods over beasts, of order over wildness. Yet even in defeat, the serpent gave way to wisdom, for Delphi became the greatest source of guidance in Greece. In China, serpent took yet another form. Not feared, not slain, but revered. The Chinese dragon, long-bodied and serpent-like, was a bringer of rain, rivers, and prosperity. Unlike the fire-breathing monsters of later European tales, Chinese dragons were benevolent embodiments of nature's bounty. They soared through the clouds, curling and coiling like rivers, their arrival bringing life-giving rain to crops. Emperors traced their lineage to dragons, claiming their authority from the same cosmic serpents that watered the land. In their image, the serpent was not chaos or doom, but harmony, balance, and blessing. The dragon was the breath of the sky, the winding river, the symbol of power aligned with nature. When we set these serpent myths side by side, their differences shine. The Norse serpent coils the world, promising its end. The Aztec serpent feathers itself with wisdom, promising renewal. The Hindu serpent supports the cosmos, steady and endless. The Greek serpent guards a sacred place until it is slain, yielding wisdom to the victor. The Chinese serpent becomes a dragon, not feared but celebrated, the very source of rain and life. And yet, beneath their differences, one thread remains. The serpent is never ordinary. It is always vast, always succored close to the roots of the world. Whether feared or worshipped, it represents the forces that humankind cannot fully tame. The sea's depth, the sky's storms, the earth's fertility, the inevitability of time itself. The serpent slithers between opposites: death and life, chaos and wisdom, earth and heaven. To some, it is doom, jaws wide at the world's edge. To others, it is the teacher, the giver, the cosmic foundation. To others still, it is the river's flow, the rain's descent, the cycle of life renewed. So when we see a serpent winding across stone or swimming through water, we may glimpse more than an animal. We may see Jarmangander stirring in the sea. We may see Quetzalcoatlus, feathers gleaming in the sky. We may see Shishe, steady beneath the dreaming god. We may see Apollo's arrows striking at Python. Or we may see a dragon's coils carrying rain to thirsty fields. The serpent is, and has always been, a reminder that the world is vast, mysterious, and alive with power. A power that can destroy, renew, or sustain. And in its winding coils, we see our own stories reflected, twisting between fear and reverence, between chaos and wisdom, between endings and beginnings. Across the world, people told different stories. But beneath those differences lies a shared heartbeat. Each myth, whether of floods or fire, suns or tricksters, carries a fragment of the human soul. They remind us that we are not alone in our questions, that every culture has searched the skies, the seas, and the shadows for meaning. And though the answers vary, the wonder is the same. If you'd like to keep traveling through these timeless tales, from creation to the end of the world, stay with us here at Gently Fall Asleep. Subscribe, and let each story carry you deeper into the echoes of myth. Until next time, may your nights be filled with calm, and your dreams with stories as old as the stars.